order. I call the meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm Melissa Sheehy-Richard. I'm the MLA Enhanced West and chair of this committee. Today we're going to hear presentations regarding an update on Veterans Affairs Canada programs and support for Nova Scotia. Just remind everyone to silence their phones, and in case of an emergency, we'll use the Granville Street exit and walk up to Grand Parade. At this point, I'd like to say I hope everybody had a good holiday and Happy New Year, because we haven't met as a committee in a while. So at this point, I'll pass it to MLA Robichaud to introduce themselves.
MLA Ryan Robichaud from Clare.
Good afternoon. I see you again, Mr. Harris. Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West.
Nick Hilton for Yarmouth.
Hi, everybody. Damien Storlaw from Bedford South.
Good afternoon. Derek Marquette, MLA, Sydney Member 2.
Ian Rankin, Timberley Prospect.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Susie Hanson, MLA for Halifax Needham.
And I would also like to note the presence of Legislative Counsel to my left, which is Philip Grasse, and Legislative Committee Clerk to my right, Tamer Musabi. So our topic today that we're discussing is the Veterans Affairs Canada program and support. And at this point, I would like to have Mr. Harris introduce himself. And since he's the one and only witness today, I welcome you to introduce yourself and bring your opening remarks.
Great, thanks, and good afternoon, and thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for inviting me to appear today on an update with respect to Veterans Affairs Canada programs and supports. As noted, I'm Stephen Harris. I'm the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Service Delivery Branch in Veterans Affairs. Veterans Affairs Canada exists to serve those who've served. Veterans represent a significant part of our population. In fact, approximately 1 in every 84 Canadians have served. Their service has directly contributed to peace, security, and the freedoms that we all enjoy today, often at considerable personal cost to their physical and mental health well-being. Our responsibility is to ensure that support does not end when service does. Every year, thousands of Canadians complete their military service and begin the transition to civilian life. On average, about 8,200 regular and reserve force members make that transition annually. Across the country, more than 461,000 veterans now call Canada home, and approximately 194 individuals turn to Veterans Affairs Canada. 194,000 individuals turn to Veterans Affairs Canada for programs and services. This includes not only veterans, but also their families, serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces, RCMP members, and survivors. Veterans range from young adults just starting their post-service lives to individuals in later stages of life, and their needs change over time. Some require health care or rehabilitation supports related to service-related injuries or illnesses. Others are focused on education, skills development, or securing meaningful civilian employment. Some need income support, while others rely on long-term or community-based care. Veterans Affairs Canada's role is to ensure that supports are available across this continuum, responding to veterans' needs at every stage of their post-service journey. VAC delivers a broad suite of programs designed to support that very well-being and their successful transition to civilian life. These include disability benefits, financial supports, rehabilitation services, education or training benefits, career transition services, or long-term care supports. Together, these programs are intended to provide stability, recognize the impact of service, and support veterans and their families over the long term. In particular, disability benefits play a central role in recognizing and compensating veterans for their service-related injuries and illnesses. We know that demand for these benefits continues to grow, and improving how we deliver them remains a key Veterans Affairs priority. We've been working to streamline application processes, improve turnaround times, and modernize how claims are processed so that veterans can access decisions quickly and supports more quickly. The federal budget in 2025 directly supports this work. The budget will invest more than $184 million in the next fiscal year, 26-27, to stabilize disability benefit processing capacity and to modernize the operational processes and information technology infrastructure. In addition, Budget 25 also includes $40 million to stabilize departmental resources so that Veterans Affairs can maintain productivity and processing capacity. This stabilization funding requires or provides the necessary time and flexibility for us to modernize our processes, develop new tools, and systems that are keeping pace with increased client demand and continuing to meet the evolving needs of veterans. Alongside these investments, VAC continues to deliver a wide range of supports that address not only financial and rehabilitation needs, but also the mental health and well-being of veterans, their families, or caregivers. Mental health is a critical support of this work, providing counseling, peer support, and other services designed to help veterans and their families through recovery and rehabilitation. Eligible family members and survivors can access mental health treatment. Eligible family members and survivors can also access vocational assistance, healthcare benefits, and financial supports, including a caregiver recognition benefit. Veterans can make sure that they can gain access through a veteran family program, through operational stress injury clinics and satellite clinics, and through the Veterans Affairs Assistance Line, which offers 24/7 confidential support. Through the Operational Stress Injury Social Support Program, more than 2,000 individuals currently receive services, including veterans and family members, with over 20,000 supported since the inception of the program. The Veteran Family Program provides access to military family resource centers across the country, supporting thousands of families each year with information, counseling, and referral services. Further to involvement in treatment, Veterans Affairs also provides direct support to caregivers. In 2024-2025, nearly $28 million was distributed through the Caregiver Recognition Benefit, with close to 2,000 caregivers currently receiving this support. Through the Veterans and Independence Program, Veterans Affairs supported more than 19,000 primary caregivers and survivors with funding for housekeeping and ground maintenance, helping veterans and families maintain independence at home. We know that the needs of veterans evolve over time. We remain committed to adapting our programs and services to reflect changes in demographics, research, and best practices, ensuring veterans continue to receive relevant and effective support. Veterans and other eligible clients and their families are encouraged to contact Veterans Affairs Canada through their MyVac account, our National Client Contact Network, or a local area office if they have questions or availability around eligibility of programs. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd be happy to answer questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. At this point, I will open the floor up for the first round of questioning. We have the NDP Caucus with 20 minutes, followed by the Liberals with 10, and then the PC Caucus will follow that with 30 minutes. And I open the floor to MLA Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your presentation. I have a question about our most recent data. It shows that there's over 33,000 veterans who call Nova Scotia home. What percentage of those veterans are accessing programs and support from Veterans Affairs Canada?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks very much for the question. I don't have a specific number of veterans globally in Nova Scotia who are accessing programs and services. I can tell you, a variety of statistics that reflect the Nova Scotia experience. So in the last year, we had about 3,000 veterans come into either our area office in Halifax or the one that we have in Sydney. In terms of disability benefits, which is really our flagship program, about 10% of our overall applications on an annual basis, and we get somewhere in the neighborhood of about 90,000, 95,000 on an annual basis, come from veterans based in Nova Scotia. So it's a significant part. Our area office location here in Halifax, but which represents the Nova Scotia area, is one of our bigger area office locations across the country as well. In terms of case management, and so that's a service that we offer to those veterans who are either going through rehabilitation or who require some additional support because of the severity of their illness and or injury. We have about 2,300 that are in Nova Scotia, of an overall amount of just short of about 16,000 nationally. So I think that gives you a little bit of a sense of the number of veterans who are in Nova Scotia demographically speaking, and their usage of Veterans Affairs services and programs as well.
MLA Hanson.
Thank you for that. So what is the total spend by the Department of Veterans Affairs Canada on programs and support for veterans in Nova Scotia? How does this compare to previous years, and is it going up and down, and is the demand increasing as well?
Mr. Harris.
So the simple answer to the question is demand is increasing everywhere, not just in Nova Scotia. We've seen an increase in the number of applications for things like disability benefits into the department of over 100% since 2015, the number of applications that we see. That's one program. There are a variety of programs that we have. So the same is true for veterans in Nova Scotia in terms of increased demand on Veterans Affairs services And those could be financial compensation services, they could be supports for education and training or returning to the civilian workforce, or they could be about rehabilitation as well. So there's a large number of supports. I would not have the overall program spend for Nova Scotia, just uniquely based on all of the programs and services that we have in place. I do have, sort of access to a number of different programs where we have some breakdowns of spending that I could share with you after. But in terms of a global number, the amount of money that's being spent by Veterans Affairs on an annual basis has gone up significantly, of course, over the last number of years as well. Last year, we were about $8 billion in program spending. That's money that either goes directly to veterans in recognition or compensation for their illness or injury, in support for income or what have you, or in support of accessing things like treatment benefits, long-term care, things of that nature as well. We're up probably from about $5 billion even just a couple of years ago. So there's been an increasing spend on Veterans Affairs benefits, and that would be similar for Nova Scotia as it would be for other places.
Emily Hanson.
Thank you. Veteran sacrifices have shaped the Canada that we know today, and they deserve to know services will be available when they need them. In the last federal budget, Veterans Affairs saw over $4 billion in cuts. Only the Housing Department saw deeper budget cuts. What impact do you expect this is going to have on the delivery of the support for veterans in Nova Scotia specifically?
Mr. Harris.
Once again, thanks for the question. The only cut that was announced for Veterans Affairs benefits in the most recent budget 2025, was a reduction in the amount of reimbursement rate that we pay for cannabis for medicinal purposes. The current rate is about $8.50 per gram. It is being reduced to $6 as a reimbursement. All we do is reimburse individuals who are authorized to take it. That $4 billion figure is taken over about a 30-year accrual benefit. So on an annual basis, it's about $129 million. But the way in which it's costed in the federal budget is on an accrual basis. So they take the lifetime of the benefit, which means that over 30 years or so is that it's not a direct benefit to veterans. It's a reimbursement rate that we reimburse to federal licensed sellers of cannabis for medicinal purposes. There's no cut to anything that's going directly to a veteran, and veterans will still be able to access, as they had before, cannabis for medicinal purposes if they are authorized to do so.
Emily Hanson.
Some veterans are worried that the federal government will begin nickel and diming them. The Federal Veterans Affairs Minister Joe McKnight has said the changes are coming to the way disability benefits are calculated for veterans. Instead of calculating benefit increases on either CPI or the average of a basket of public service salaries, whichever is higher, we're hearing that they will now simply be calculated on the basis of CPI. So we know that here in our province and across the board, folks are finding it harder to get by. Recent data shows that nearly 40% of Nova Scotians report finding it difficult to meet their financial needs. How many Nova Scotian veterans are receiving disability benefits and will therefore be impacted?
Mr. Harris.
Once again, thanks for the question. I can confirm that no Nova Scotia veterans will be affected. There isn't a change to the way in which the calculations are being made for veterans. Some other communities may see changes in that note, but it is not applicable to anybody who's receiving a Veterans Affairs disability pension. And so veterans will not be affected at all by that. And to speak to maybe the earlier point around whether or not veterans are going to be nickel and dime going forward, again, just coming back to my previous point, what we've seen over the course of the last 5-6 years is year-over-year increased spending on benefits directly to veterans. And so when I noted earlier that we were somewhere in the $5 billion range in spend a few years ago, and last year we were closer to around $8 billion. Again, these are all things that help address the needs of veterans, and that's increased spending that will continue on into the future.
Emily Hanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. Veterans Affairs Canada is now funding a rent supplements program to help veterans afford their homes in this province. We know this is needed. And last year, Nova Scotians spent $5,700 more a year on their rent than they did 5 years ago in 2021. That kind of increase is too much for those on pensions to afford. How many Nova Scotian veterans are receiving a rent supplement as of right now?
Mr. Harris.
I don't have that exact figure for how many are receiving it. The rent supplement program for veterans who may be at risk of homelessness or in a homelessness type situation is something that's actually delivered by a partner department of ours, Housing Canada, but with support from Veterans Affairs. So I don't have those specific stats for Nova Scotia now. I can tell you that almost $100 million has been invested in the program nationally to make sure that veterans who are at risk of homelessness can have this rent supplement program, and that it was something that was a gap before. We had temporary measures whereby we could help support veterans, emergency funds where we could put veterans up in a hotel maybe for a couple of nights. But what we didn't have was an opportunity to give them a chance at stable long-term housing. And we know that stable long-term housing, as I think the member's indicating, is really a prerequisite for a lot of other things, including mental health stability, addictions issues, and a number of others. So the introduction of the rent supplement program is really a great benefit for veterans in Nova Scotia and others who may be at risk of homelessness.
Emily Hansen.
Thank you. I agree. I think when we had conversations previous in this committee with housing folks and making sure that our veterans are housed, I think this is a positive piece to making sure that they have proper housing, stable housing, because as we know, all of those pieces do fall in line, right, with making sure that they can have their regular day-to-day lives and all of those pieces. So I'm just wondering how many veterans are on this wait list for housing support? Do you know? How many are on the wait list?
Mr. Harris.
So, I'm not aware of people on a wait list. As they're identified, there is work with a local service provider. In this case, it's Vets Canada in the Halifax area and in Nova Scotia and in much of the east to help coordinate and find subsidized housing where the rent supplement can be of assistance for veterans. And so in terms of wait lists, as soon as they're identified and they're deemed to be eligible for the program, the local provider will help to support them in finding a place, as I'm sure everyone's aware, whether it's here or in other geographical places across Canada, housing is a difficult find, and most importantly, safe housing. And we want to make sure that veterans can find that. So there's not a wait list for it. As soon as somebody's identified, they work to try and find and identify an available placement for that individual in a local situation.
Emily Hansen.
Thank you. So there's other federal funding for rent supplements, and through the National Housing Strategy, it will be expiring in 2 years' time. So what is the end date for the Veterans Rent Supplement funding? Is there an end date for the Veterans Supplement funding?
Mr. Harris.
I believe, and just because it's not a Veterans Affairs specifically run program, I believe that it's initially a 3-year horizon, but there isn't any plan to withdraw funding afterwards. It was originally a 3-year setup for it, and they'll continue to work on it after that in terms of ensuring long-term sustainability for it. My understanding is not that there's any particular end date. It was just that we wanted to get it up and running, make sure there were providers across the country who would be able to help support veterans in those places, and that the providers themselves, that might have to be renewed, but the funding to help support veterans themselves will continue.
Emily Hansen.
Thank you. Last year, the federal government announced pay raises for military members, which is much needed, given the increasing cost for things like housing, power, and food, especially in this province. But for veterans receiving the income replacement benefit, their income is essentially frozen through this benefit. Veterans receive 90% of their gross pre-release military salary. And I'm just wondering, what are you hearing from veterans and service providers about this change? Is this eroding the purchasing power of veterans? What are your thoughts on that?
Mr. Harris.
Once again, thanks for the question. The income replacement benefit, as you noted, provides 90% of a veteran's pre-release salary to allow them to. The initial intention is to go through rehabilitation and then be able to go on to whatever it is that they need to do after they've had a chance to go through that. And for those members who are not able to successfully rehabilitate or reestablish themselves because of illness or injury, that 90% is continued through to the age of 65. It is adjusted annually. And so, with respect to how it compares to inflation or whether it's stagnant, it isn't stagnant from that point of view. It's adjusted annually with respect to inflation. and continues until they're 65, at which point, if they still need it, it can be reduced at 70% post-65. So I think in terms of the increases to CAF salaries, that's wonderful. I won't comment too much on my colleagues at Department of National Defence and Canadian Armed Forces, although I wholeheartedly support, ensuring that our Canadian Armed Forces members have a good wage. But it is something that's continued. There are also other supports that could be in place for veterans to help them, and those individuals who may find themselves in any kind of financial difficulty due to challenges of cost of living and other things. There are other programs that can help support them as well.
Emily Hanson.
Thank you. Here in Halifax, veterans report that not having enough money for housing is a top cause, especially for homelessness. The rent supplement helps with this, but it sounds like folks need more to afford their bills, and you did mention that there are some other programs in place. When was the last time Veterans Affairs Canada did a full review of a financial benefit program? And if it was recently, what did you find in terms of what was needed for veterans in our province?
Mr. Harris.
To start, the rent supplement program is separate from the income replacement benefit. And so we just spoke about the fact that a veteran, at a minimum, could receive 90% of their pre-release salary in addition to having a rent supplement to help them with living expenses. And so if you have a reasonable salary when you depart the Canadian Armed Forces, you may also have pensions related to that or other income that you may have. You can also earn up to $20,000 against the income replacement benefit before any money is withdrawn from that. And so in addition to your 90% of your pre-release salary, you can earn another $20,000 without it being impacted on the rest of your benefits. So I think that with the rent supplement being separate than income replacement benefits and other streams of funding or financial support that can be in place for veterans, I think they're in a good spot for that. But recognize that it is challenging. Housing market is tremendously challenging. Rental is tremendously challenging, and we need to make sure that that veterans are being well supported after their military release.
Emily Hanson.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, was there a full review done of financial benefit programs? Sorry.
Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris.
Thank you again. In 2019, there was a review of the vast number of compensation programs, not all financial compensation programs that we had. We launched an initiative called Pension for Life, which made adjustments from lump sum payments for compensation for illness and injury into providing an opportunity for veterans to retake a pension that was something that was in place prior to 2006. There's a long history that goes behind that. But what we did look at was pain and suffering compensation, additional pain and suffering compensation, and income replacement benefit, three primary programs by which we provide financial support and compensation to veterans in 2019. And that was implemented and changed to reflect the increased compensation for veterans at that time.
Emily Hanson.
Thank you for that. We know that veterans often need mental health support as they transition back into civilian life. For the average Nova Scotian, wait times for those appointments can be months long. On average, how long are veterans waiting for urgent and non-urgent mental health care?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks for the question. Couple of answers. So with respect to mental health, we put in place just a couple of years ago something called the mental health benefit. And so when veterans apply for a disability benefit from Veterans Affairs, usually they had to wait until a decision was made on their application before they could access treatment. We recognize that wait, particularly at that time, we were quite slow and delayed in processing benefits, could cause considerable suffering amongst the veteran population who are applying for a mental health benefit. Waiting for treatment can be very detrimental. So what we did was, if you were applying for a mental health benefit, we gave you eligibility for treatment that would be paid for by Veterans Affairs at the time of application. And so you could immediately go and seek treatment. In Nova Scotia, since April 2022, when this program came into place, We've had 5,571 applications for mental health benefit from Nova Scotian veterans, which means that they are immediately eligible to go and get treatment benefits that are funded by Veterans Affairs, so treatment for their mental health condition, while they're waiting ultimately for a decision on their disability benefits. That lasts for 2 years, by which time we will have made a decision on their application. If they were deemed favorable, and in most cases for mental health in most cases for mental health applications, our approval rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 85 to 90% for mental health applications. That meant they could just continue with the treatment benefits. If ever it was deemed that that was not service related or it did not exist for that particular veteran, then that benefit would end after 2 years. They would still be able to take advantage of accessing treatment for it. So that means they can go to a private mental health counselor supports, depending on what their choice is. We have a variety of ways to help give them opportunities in terms of giving them a list of people who might be able to support them in their area. And then they can follow up and make contact and follow up through there. The occupational stress injury clinics that we have as well. We have, let me just see, sorry. We opened a Nova Scotia occupational stress injury clinic in 2015. We added a satellite office in Sydney in 2019. As of June of just this past year, 2025, we've seen about 1,715 referrals in the Nova Scotia community, and about 250 on an annual basis coming forward from there. And that's another place where individuals can go and get support for mental health issues, occupational stress injuries, PTSD, things of that nature as well. And so we are providing access to services for those individuals who are suffering from mental health illness or injury.
MLA Hanson with 1:14 left.
Thank you. You answered my other question. I was going to ask about the operational stress injury clinic. So I'm grateful for that. And we know that it has 2 offices. So, we know a lot of veterans live in rural communities. Like, how do they access those services, from one end of the province to the next? Is there any other options?
Mr. Harris.
There are a number of options, and the experience that I think we all had with COVID was we needed to make sure that people could access things no matter where they are and where they live. And so while much of the occupational stress injury clinic work before was in person, and people might be expected to drive to Halifax or be in Cape Breton, they started to be able to do much more with respect to virtual and telemedicine and supports of that nature. They've continued that since that time, and so whether or not you're involved in an occupational stress injury clinic or whether or not you're seeking treatment in a different form, we have lots of providers who are more than willing to offer remote access to telemedicine, virtual medicine, Zoom medicine, whatever you want to call it, over the course of that period of time, recognizing that people have exactly that areas where they need to be able to join from.
Order, perfect timing. At this point, we'll turn it over to MLA Rankin with 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for your work, your public service work, helping our veterans across the country. I'll just start with an issue just over a year ago that the department has been investigating a possible error in how the department calculates what veterans pay for long-term care. So veterans in long-term care program, they cover the cost of their accommodations, meals, with the cost being, quote, set at a level equal to the lowest cost of room and board in least expensive province. So in this findings, some veterans were paying a lot more over the course of 20 years plus than what they should have been paying. So just want to know if there's an update on that situation, if you could explain how that's impacted veterans here in Nova Scotia.
Mr. Harris.
So I'll start by saying that at this time there's about 213 veteran clients in long-term care in Nova Scotia. Just for some context, that number has gone down over the course of the last number of years. The way in which the eligibility requirements are for veterans accessing long-term care, it really relates primarily to those who are Second World War and Korean still, although there are ways for us to help support veterans in more recent conflicts who also need support to long-term care. With respect to the issue that you're raising, there was a note in Budget 25 with respect to how the government intends to clarify that particular issue. So the issue was that there was an interpretation issue between the use of province and territory as to what would be the appropriate calculation that would be used for the cost for individual veterans. It was to be used as the lowest calculation from a provincial point of view. There's some interpretation as to whether or not territory should be involved in that particular calculation. The government's putting forward some legislation with respect to that. And ultimately, if there are questions that continue beyond that, that would be probably a court-related issue to decide on how it would be interpreted appropriately.
MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so just so I'm understanding it, it's a kind of a language and interpretation. So just to be clear, out of the 213 in Nova Scotia, we don't think, or your department does not believe that any of these Nova Scotians have overpaid in the last 20 years?
Mr. Harris.
Thank you so much. I suspect that the individuals haven't necessarily been in long-term care for 20 years, and so individuals who may have been impacted by the calculation that's being proposed here over the course of the last 20 years, most individuals don't spend much more than 6, maybe 12 months in a long-term care facility. Fortunately, some of them would have passed during that period of time. I think the perspective of the department has been that what was included in the legislation indicated that it would be the lowest rate amongst provinces. And the discussion is around whether or not territorial rates need to be taken into account. And I think that's the approach that the government is looking to clarify based on the language in the most recent budget.
MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was interested in the talk around the increased military spending that we're seeing nationwide, but disproportionately we're going to see it here in Halifax. Already announcements about the polar breakers, icebreakers, and submarines. And so there's going to be significant attention to the region. Just wondering your thoughts broadly on the impact that will trigger with the services that we're going to require here in the province for veterans, if you see or if you're forecasting an increase in services, and if you can quantify that in any way.
Mr. Harris.
Thanks, Madam Chair. It's probably too soon for me to be able to quantify what that might look like for a Nova Scotia area or Veterans Affairs more generally. I think the easy answer is to say, if the Canadian Armed Forces size or complement increases, the likelihood that there is more demand and more focus on the need for Veterans Affairs services at the end is obvious. So, as you continue to increase the size, and potentially as the government and the country enters into a very high-risk security time frame and global context, the reality is people serving are more likely to be ill or injured. People serving in conflict zones are more likely to be ill and injured. More people serving are more likely to be ill and injured. And so from a Veterans Affairs point of view, into the future, we do need to make sure that we have the capacity to be able to address whether it's 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, the impacts of an increased Canadian Armed Forces, both presence and level of activity.
MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And just wondering if the department is engaged in a meaningful way with the province in the efforts to incorporate the services of VAC with universal mental health care. So you mentioned a couple great examples around the occupational clinics that are offered and the mental health benefit. I think, using those types of programs and finding a way to collaborate to leverage the provincial goals would be something that would be underway. So just wondering if there is discussions on how VAC can participate in that way.
Mr. Harris.
I think we're always looking to make sure that we're cooperating with provinces. We mentioned, as you noted, the OSI clinics themselves. They're funded by Veterans Affairs, but delivered by provincial authorities. So we don't run them. We provide money and support to allow for them to be run for the benefit of veterans and RCMP members and others. I think that's a good example of a partnership that helps and works well. Everybody's focused well on mental health, and so the integration of the supports that are offered through Veterans Affairs and how that relates to the provincial responsibilities and opportunities, I think is critical. So we continue to have conversations with all of our provincial counterparts around the best way to help support the continuum of care that's required for the veteran population, both from the provincial area of responsibility in healthcare. And I would want to underline that, is that Veterans Affairs has a particular responsibility to help support veterans who have an illness or injury related to their service. And provincial health authorities have a responsibility to provide services to Canadian citizens. And sometimes they intersect, and sometimes they are parallel lines. We need to make sure that each of us is upholding our responsibility in those areas to ensure that veterans don't fall through the gap, and we don't end up in a circumstance where Veterans Affairs is saying, well, that's Nova Scotia's responsibility, and Nova Scotia is saying, well, that's the federal government's responsibility, and in between is somebody who's stuck in a gap. So that's work that I think is continuing.
Emily Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I was interested in these clinics, the occupational clinics that help with PTS and stuff. And 1,700 referrals is impressive. I was curious if those referrals are exclusive to the veterans in that narrow definition of the Korean War and the wars previous, or are all combat veterans eligible for those programs? And further to that, when we're speaking about recruitment and the need to grow, we know the investment's coming. We need to work on recruitment. Are current serving members eligible to participate in those types of programs, given that they obviously have mental health issues and impacts from their day-to-day job?
Mr. Harris.
So the short answer is yes. Current serving Canadian Armed Forces members, RCMP members, retired RCMP members, and veterans can all participate in the OSI structure. It includes support for families as well. I think on an annual basis last year Veterans Affairs spent about $8,500,000 on occupational stress injury clinics in the province of Nova Scotia. But it is a much broader group of people who are able to participate.
Emily Rankin.
There's a program for tax-free funding for a range of at-home services. I'm just wondering if you have any information on the use and the Nova Scotian currently using the program. If you can speak to the way how we can provincially collaborate on that home care Veterans Independence Program, I believe it's called.
Mr. Harris.
Thanks for the question, Madam Chair. So as of April 1st, we had, last year that is, we had about 8,800 participants in Veterans Independence Program in Nova Scotia. The Veterans Independence Program has been around for decades and actually is like one of the early precursors of home care and ensuring that individuals can be and remain in their home for as long as is possible for two reasons. Better health outcomes. We always found that veterans did well if they could stay home for a longer period of time. So that meant access to things like meals, groundskeeping, housekeeping, snow removal, things of that nature, but also maybe home adaptations when that's appropriate for veterans. It's a program that's continued and has been quite successful, and we've seen provincial counterparts look to adapt it to a provincial setting to see where that's possible. Once again, I think there's an opportunity for us to work collaboratively with a provincial organization like Nova Scotia to say, like, how can you and us collaborate together to make sure that there's no duplication or overlap of services, but there's also no gap in services for individuals. The program itself has been, I think, very successful in delaying and deferring people requiring more intensive levels of care and being able to stay at home.
Order. Thank you. I will turn it to the PC Caucus, beginning with MLA Stolwit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Harris, and thank you for all your answers. I'd like to talk about a few questions on performance indicators and delivery, if I may. First question is on any feedback that VAC has received from veterans and families in Nova Scotia, and how does your group use veteran feedback to drive program changes? And if you have any examples where this led to some concrete improvements.
Mr. Harris.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We regularly communicate with veterans across the country, including veterans, of course, in Nova Scotia around their thoughts, feelings, recommendations for program delivery. We have a national client survey that we conduct every 2 years, approximately, that surveys 2,500 veteran survivors, clients of ours across the country, with respect to how are they feeling about the services that we are giving them, are they effective, are they working? Generally speaking, the answer is they are supportive. They think that the service is a good service. in the area of about 78, 80% in most of those indicators. They'd like it faster. They'd like it to be faster. They'd like us to make decisions faster, and I think that's a fair piece. We have as well a number of advisory committees that we have that report either directly to the minister or who work with the department in a range of issues. And so we've had advisory committees that work on things like transition, things like care and families, and others, with representatives that would include individuals from Nova Scotia as well, who contribute regularly, where the department will go and solicit advice, solicit input, and feedback from individuals. And I think lastly, I would just indicate, if you know the veteran community well, they are not shy about sharing their opinions about things. They are quite welcome to come to us on a regular basis, be that my minister, my deputy minister, or directly to me, and indicate areas where they've had either great experience or where they think that we need to do better. In terms of what they think that we need to do better on in performance measures, it is exactly that. Be faster. The programs and services are good. It sometimes takes too long to access them, and sometimes it's too complicated and requires a bunch of paperwork. Fix that. And we are, in fact, working on that right now. We've made great strides in being faster and making decisions. Cut the amount of time that it takes to make a decision in more than half in the last couple of years, which is great, but it's still not meeting our service standard, and so we still have work to do to get there.
Emily Stovall.
Thank you for that. And you've answered a bit of my next question, but just we can elaborate a little more further. On the performance indicators, like what methodology internally do you have in terms of the numbers? What constitutes a program working versus not? And are you effectively meeting, or do you have data to tell us whether this is effectively meeting the needs of Nova Scotian veterans?
Mr. Harris.
I'll start by indicating we wouldn't specifically look at whether or not it's meeting the needs of Nova Scotia veterans. We would look, generally speaking, at veterans across the country and to whether it's meeting the needs of them from a variety of different feedback mechanisms. And as I said, whether that's direct feedback or surveys or what have you. But we do regularly talk with people around it. We also have a group within our own department that does audit and evaluation on a regular basis. And so every 2, 3, 4 years, they are looking at a range of programs and evaluating whether or not that program is meeting its intended need. And the intended need is, of course, always to help veterans. And so is the program meeting the need for which it was established? Is it working well? Is it providing value for money? And we do this on a regular basis. They're all posted publicly with respect to all of the programs that we have as to, is it doing exactly what it was supposed to do? And if not, what recommendations would they make about fixing it? And the department is required to respond as to whether or not we agree, and we're going to go ahead and fix it. And so that's a second part to that. With respect to performance measures, we have a whole bunch of service standards for each of our programs. Our disability program, we are supposed to be making a decision within 16 weeks, 80% of the time. I will tell you we are not meeting that right now. This is the one where I just said to you that we've cut the wait time in half. At some point, it was taking somewhere on average about 40 weeks to make a decision. Over the course of the last number of years, we've got it down to about 20, which is significant, but it's still not 16. And so we're investing in part of the note that I made at the start in my opening remarks was to indicate that we've received investment from the federal government to make these things better, to work through service modernization, to improve the way in which we work, to make those decisions faster. That's one program, but we have service indicators for a range of programs. In some cases, we're meeting them, and in some cases, we're probably slightly behind. The most obvious one is the one that I just referred to, is the disability benefits, which is sort of one of our flagship programs, and not meeting the service standard is not okay. The team's working diligently to fix that now, and as I said, we've made significant progress over the course of the last couple of years, and that's expected to continue to the point where we are meeting our service standard.
Emily Stovall.
Thank you for that answer. Next topic is, do you know the portion of eligible veterans in Nova Scotia? I know we're talking about Nova Scotia, but if not, then on a national level, who are not currently registered with VAC? And have you got any strategies in place to reach these folks? And specifically on that, how do you ensure that veterans that are experiencing homelessness are connected to the benefits and services that are there? How do we communicate to folks to let them know about that?
Mr. Harris.
As I noted in my opening remarks, there's about 461,000 veterans, according to the most recent census in Canada. We have 194,000 approximately clients of Veterans Affairs. They are not all veterans. So we have some who are survivors, spouses. We have some who are RCMP, and others, I'd say in the ballpark of about 120,000 would be veterans. So, less than a third of veterans in Canada are clients of Veterans Affairs Canada. And there's lots of good reasons for that. We're a need-based organization. So it is if somebody needs Veterans Affairs Canada support based on illness or injury that they suffered in service, then they can come to us. Many people serve in the Canadian Armed Forces, finish their career, transition out to either retirement or another career, and they do great. Most people do. And so, there's a bit of a perception that, well, there's a lot of ill and injured coming out of the Canadian Armed Forces, and there are some, for sure. And I don't want to ever discount their experience, but they don't actually represent the majority of the Canadian veteran population, many who serve and go on to, healthy post-military careers. But for those who don't, you're exactly right. We need to make sure that they're well aware of the fact that they can come to Veterans Affairs and that we can support them through whatever transition they might need, whether that's temporary or longer term, to provide them with income support, health care, other things that they might require, education and training, career transition services, a whole range of things. And so what we try and do is, both working with our Canadian Armed Forces partners, as people are leaving the military, we do transition interviews. I think we did about 800 transition interviews in Nova Scotia alone last year. And we do usually about 7,500 maybe on an annual basis, where we meet with the military member, sometimes their family as well, who's leaving the forces, and talk to them about what they are experiencing, what they're feeling, whether they have any needs or illness or injury. And then they can either come to us directly, but if they leave and they decide or they find that they have illness or injury after they've left for 5 years, 10 years, we've had people come back after 20 years and say, I'm hurt, I'm injured, I have a mental health issue as a result of my service. I didn't identify it at the time, but I'm identifying it now. You can come back at any time. And so it's very important through our social media, communications, all our work with other areas, regimental associations, veteran associations, that we continue to tell them, come to us if they need to. The homeless population, I'll just add in 12 seconds, one of the most difficult populations, often dealing with a multitude of issues. Addictions, maybe family strife and trouble, financial issues, of course, as well. And so part of the issue that we've been trying to work with is to find, rent supplements and other areas, working with homeless shelters, working with other military organizations to say, if you know of anyone, put them in contact with us so that we can help.
MLA Stovalik.
Thank you very much. I'd like to pass the floor on to my colleague.
MLA Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harris, again, for all your work on behalf of veterans in Nova Scotia and indeed Canada. I represent CFB Greenwood in my constituency, so per capita we have a fairly large veterans population there. So a lot of the conversation today is pretty relevant to a lot of the area that I represent. I have a few questions, lines of questioning here that I'd like to get into with you. First, though, you addressed something about your wait times in one of your previous questions. And I guess what I'd like to get from you, you discussed some of the wait times and you're making a bit of progress there. How does Nova Scotia compare to other jurisdictions? Is there a difference between jurisdictions in wait times? Or that's the first question I'd like to ask you. And the follow-up to that would be, do you see any emerging pressures on VAC programs specific to Nova Scotia maybe over the next 5 years?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks, Madam Chair. To answer the first question around any difference in wait times in Nova Scotia, we don't measure wait times by provincial boundaries, but if I had to guess, there would be no difference. It's the same, the same process, the same range of issues that we might face as well. And so to give you an idea, we had 23,000 files beyond our 16-week service standard about 4 years ago. We're under 10,000 now. So we made a significant gain in that. Again, still more work to do on that front. But the average wait time is somewhere around 20, 21 weeks at this point in time. And that would be national and quite likely reflective of the Nova Scotia experience. In terms of any gaps coming forward in Nova Scotia, it is a large veteran population, it's a large military base, large veteran population. What I want to be able to address, and one of the earlier members brought it up, is how do we ensure into the future that we have the right mixture and capacity to be able to support the veteran population? As the Canadian Armed Forces continues to grow, as their experience may change and evolve, how do we make sure that Veterans Affairs is in place? And how do we modernize our system so that it isn't sort of the old system that we used to have, which is, well, either you went into the office in Sydney or you went into the office in Halifax, you talked to somebody, and that's it. Most of our interactions are actually virtual and online, but how do we make it easier for a veteran to be able to apply and access services, not only the service that they might think they need, but anything else they might need? And so I think my challenge for the future is to find a way to make sure that it's easier to access services as we may see more demand into the future.
Emily Palmer.
Thank you. You must see my notes because it was a good segue into my next couple of questions around access and a shift to digital services. And a lot of us on this committee, on our side, we represent rural parts of Nova Scotia. And I guess a couple of questions. How has the shift to digital services, do you believe, how has it affected older veterans? And what safeguards are in place to ensure digital services don't replace that in-person support needed, maybe for a lot of rural parts of Nova Scotia? So if you could address those, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Harris.
It's a great question because it does reflect the real reality of the veteran population. When most of us think of the veteran population, we think of sort of the older gentleman at the Remembrance Day ceremony, maybe in a wheelchair at this point, maybe in their 90s. It's not the real picture of veterans at this stage. Veterans are of all ages, women, men, Indigenous, all sorts of different ages and abilities based on that. So to answer your question with respect to digital services, I noted the experience during COVID for the occupational stress injury clinics, and one of the things that I think we really learned from the COVID pandemic and the way that we needed to change service was we actually served a lot of people virtually already. We do have a MyVac account online opportunity for people to be able to go on and submit stuff digitally, much like a Canada Revenue Agency account, similar kind of nature to that. And most things can be done that way. But not everybody's either capable or willing to do that, either because of age, not terribly familiar with technology or comfortable with technology, and in some cases things like mental health conditions that can make that very complex and difficult. And so we maintain a whole network of in-person offices across the country. We have a 1-800 call center that people can call. We have the online digital service that people can call. And our concept and notion for the future is exactly that. Remotely, people can access services however they want. If you want to mail or fax, we still do that. And so there's a whole range of service channels that we need to maintain because of the diversity and the needs of our clientele. And I don't think that I see that going away in any way, shape, or form. The challenge is how do we just make it easier for people to be able to do that? And some of that is actually digital stuff. If I give you just a simple example of, gosh, we had files that were 500 pages, and they were paper files until not all that long ago. So we've digitized all those. And by digitizing them, we can actually search them. We can use tools to search them to get information out of them much more quickly than we used to in the past. That's not something that's going to impact the individual veteran from the point of view of what they have to do, but it's actually going to benefit us in the way in which we can help support them much more quickly.
Emily Palmer.
Thank you. And I think that's the goal. We all want the most efficient process possible to expedite the processing for our veterans. So I think we share the same goal there. I've been on this committee for a few years now, and I get to go to some forums and different events where I meet different care providers and advocacy groups for veterans. And I have a question for you, because one thing that came up at a recent Respect Forum that I was at, different treatment providers and different providers about certain things to help veterans, maybe with mental health. How often would you review treatments and evolving type of medications and alternative medications and different things that would be for your consideration for reimbursement and review? Can you walk us through the process of how you do that?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks again, Madam Chair. There's a range of sometimes what we refer to as emerging or experimental therapies that are coming for helping to support veterans. Generally speaking, a couple of things. We follow Health Canada guidelines, and so the rules and appropriate uses of whether they be medications or drugs or things of that nature are something that we will follow the rules that Health Canada provides for doctors and others across the country. Generally speaking, we try not to involve ourselves in the consultations that exist between a doctor and their veteran patient. If a doctor thinks that a treatment is a reasonable approach and it is legal in Canada and it is supported and authorized by research, that's something that we try and support. We do have benefit review grids, and so much like any large institution, there are things that we need to put in place to make sure that we know what treatments are being offered, and we know that those treatments cause no harm. We get into some challenging areas, of course, where people want to try different medications and different things that are maybe not what the original intention was. We've all seen, medications that are started out as being one thing and then end up being trialed and used in other areas. And so we follow the health research that exists in all of our areas. And we want to be careful that, experimental therapies do not harm a veteran. And so we are always looking for evidentiary research to show that there are benefits for this. And I recognize that sometimes that means that veterans who want access to treatment that they believe might be helpful for them, but is not yet recognized more commonly, that might represent a delay or a frustration for them.
Emily Palmer.
Thank you for that. My last question here in this round, I want to just focus in on the local impact some of your grants make. So, for example, through the Veteran and Family Wellbeing Fund, one of the organizations in my constituency that received $10,000 from VAC was Seven Arts Council. It's a community arts base in Greenwood, and they provide free, accessible programs to express for art therapy for veterans and their families. Can you just talk a little bit about the impact of that grant and that work that's doing, please?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks. I wouldn't necessarily be able to specifically talk about that one, but we had set up a Veteran Family and Wellbeing Fund a few years ago, which was designed to do just that. We are frequently either shared or approached by a variety of institutions that say, we have an idea about how we can help veterans, but we have no way of getting it sort of started or funded. Is there something that you can do to help? And we didn't have a program that existed until about 5-6 years ago. Since that time, we've been able to solicit applications from community organizations across the country who are either doing research or looking to offer programs to veterans and their families. There are a number in Nova Scotia. There was a veteran farm project as well. Which the woman who's running it is quite a force, and a variety of opportunities to provide veterans with a chance to look at rehabilitation in a different way. Frequently, Veterans Affairs has a very medical model. You have a shoulder injury, we're going to get you physio, we're going to do this. You have a mental health injury, you go through the traditional methods. There are non-traditional methods and non-medical methods that veterans want to be able to pursue, that organizations are looking to offer. Art therapy is a great example, but there's people who do woodworking, there's people who do music, and a whole range of other things that have been providing great value and benefits to veterans. It's great that we have an opportunity in a fund that allows us to help support new and innovative ways of trying to help support our veteran population, and that's one of them, and I know there's a number in Nova Scotia.
Emily Palmer.
And thank you. I think you made the chair very happy with the little shout-outs there as well. So I want to thank you again, Mr. Harris, and for all your work, and I'll pass it on to my colleague now. Thank you.
Emily Hilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harris, for joining us today. It's always enlightening and encouraging to hear about the programs and about how veterans interact within our community. I think in 2025 we don't always see the pros on social media. We talk a lot about a lot of the negative things that are happening across the country and around the world, and I know everyone around this table is supporting you in the work that you do, and we want to make sure that we're supporting veterans in any way that we possibly can. That perception versus reality, I think, is very an intriguing piece for me. I, too, probably view a veteran as someone older, my grandfather, and, you know, his experiences in the way that we support him, and maybe today we don't always see that same support. So I hope at some point we get back there as a society, and the work that you're doing absolutely does that. You talk about there being 461,000 veterans across Canada, and roughly 40%, maybe a little bit more of those interact with your organization. Do you do anything to interact with the remaining 60%? Well, what would that look like?
Mr. Harris.
The department runs large-scale commemoration activities, and so most of us might think of Veterans Week or Remembrance Day, but throughout the year we run commemorative programs that would help support individuals' engagement, recognition, and that don't necessarily have a medical relationship or a medical need or a financial need from Veterans Affairs Canada. And so while we are not necessarily directly serving perhaps all 461,000 from a financial or an education or a transition support point of view, we are supporting it from a Canada Remembers program that provides this exact kind of content. From an educational point of view, we send out millions and millions and millions of educational materials to schools every year to help support their participation in Remembrance Week activities and things of that nature. It's a great thing, and I'll give you just another example. The Persian Gulf War celebrating 35 years in the early spring. There's activities planned for Halifax related to that's where the port of departure was. There's activities being planned from a commemorative nature for Halifax upcoming that is to recognize those veterans who some of them may be our clients and many may not be, and recognize them and their contribution to Canada's security and safety as well. And so the opportunity for veterans to come to Veterans Affairs is always there. If their need isn't there immediately, they can always come later. And so we want to represent them well in terms of sharing the history with Canadian society and making sure that they are recognized in their communities for the great service that they've provided.
Emily Hilton.
Thank you for that. In 2021, I unfortunately had to cancel a trip to Europe. It was the trip we were taking was called In My Grandfather's Footsteps, and you followed through the war the route that they would have taken. And that was my entire family was due to go, and unfortunately due to COVID, we never got to do that. And since then, we lost my grandmother, and that trip kind of got put on hold. But the way that they appreciate veterans overseas isn't always the way we see that here anymore. And like I said, hopefully we get a chance to get back there. And I know the funding and the increases in funding that you've received it's hard not to spend them on veterans in need, but that appreciation piece helps build and regain some of that love for our community. So it's nice to hear that work is continuing. My series of questions is kind of around your current programs and some further details. How does VIC ensure continuity of care when veterans move between provinces or transition into civilian health systems?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks again for the question, and if you do get a chance, do go. We have some wonderful memorial sites across Europe, and it's been one of my great pleasures to have the opportunity to go and see and participate in activities there. I would encourage all Canadians to go and make a visit if that's possible. With respect to your question around supporting transition between provinces, Veterans Affairs exists to make sure that veteran support is in fact national. And so while we work in a provincial world where there may be different rules in different provinces, Veterans Affairs is looking to try and make sure that the equality of treatment of veterans across the country, if Nova Scotia covers something and Ontario doesn't, Veterans Affairs is likely to step in and cover the piece that isn't being covered in Ontario and vice versa. As veterans transition, some may transition out of their active service, leaving Halifax and going back home because they're retiring. They're going to go back to Alberta where they wanted to spend their next career. We'll help support them in that transition. And some people just move. We have area offices and staff across the country. So a veteran who's being supported by Veterans Affairs Canada who moves between provinces takes with them their benefits wherever they need to go. We make sure that that's in place. We will transfer their file if they need more active support and service. We'll make sure that they have a case manager when they move to their new or they arrive in their new location. That piece is really important to ensure, as you noted, continuity of care, and that things aren't falling through the cracks. It can be difficult just because the provincial rules are sometimes quite different in terms of what's supported. And so, we'll help work through for veterans and their families to make sure that they can continue to get the support that they need.
Emily Hilton.
Thank you. And just in relation to their families, can you tell us how some of your programs, how the families of veterans interact with those programs and what's available for them?
Mr. Harris.
Thank you again. So Veterans Affairs supports the veteran, but by extension, we support veteran families as well in a number of programs. And so whether that's financial compensation, there are benefits for individuals like survivors in case of the death of a member, or in cases where a member can't work. Obviously, the support ends up being there. I noted earlier a caregiver recognition program. And so, there's compensation offered for individuals who help in a caregiver role to support their veteran. That could be a partner, but it could be a family member and could be someone else as well. In terms of things like mental health support, the Veterans Affairs Assistance Line, family members can call the Veterans Affairs Assistance Line 24/7, 365 days a year, and gain access to immediately a mental health counselor and to a number of sessions of support following that if they have issues that they wish to discuss in any particular way. We want and always try to involve the family in any of the transition supports as well. And so as a member is going through their transition in the military, we invite the family to be there, to be part of the process, to understand what the member's going through, but also to be available to ask questions, understand what their supports and benefits are. I noted a veteran family program earlier where individuals can continue to go to the Military Family Resource Program centers across the country once they've released from the military as well, so that there are supports there for family members. And we have a virtual telemedicine program that families can support as well. So once a member releases, and this comes back to maybe an earlier question that was asked around access to medical care, getting a doctor. Getting a doctor can be difficult, and so as a temporary bridge member, access to virtual telemedicine or telehealth support is available for releasing members and their family members as they come through it as well. So there are a range of supports that we can put in place to help support a family member as well.
Order. And Mr. Harris, it's evident to see that you've been at this committee a few times. You finished up your comments just perfectly. So we're going into the second round of questioning, which will include 16 minutes for the PC caucus with 8 minutes for each of the NDP and Liberal caucus. And I'll turn it to Emily Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to ask one question and then I'll pass the rest over to my colleagues. My question is about investing in education and training. I was reading through the services and your benefits that you have, and I was just curious to know, how does that work? Explain to me, what is the process and how do people access these services?
Mr. Harris?
Thanks again for the question. And so with respect to education and training in particular, let's see, it's like 6-7 years ago now, I'm just trying to remember exactly, that we put in place an education and training benefit. What this benefit allows for is for military members who've served more than 6 years or more than 12 years to access, at the time it was $40,000 if you served 6 years, $80,000 if you served 12 years. It's been adjusted incrementally as well, so I think it's actually $50,000 and closer to $90,000 that a member can use to pursue education that leads to a certificate, degree, things of that nature. So somebody who's served for a minimum of 6 years can access that to be able to go forward. There's also things like rehabilitation programs. So if you have a barrier to reestablishment when you leave the military, and you need to be able to go through a rehabilitation program that could be medical and psychosocial, but could also be vocational to help reestablish yourself and maybe be able to go and seek further employment. Afterwards, that's a program that's in place as well. And so while those individuals are going through rehabilitation, they can continue to access the income replacement benefit at 90% to allow them to focus on their rehabilitation. So you don't have to choose between, am I going to go and pursue a rehabilitation program and get healthy, or am I going to try and find money and make work? So this is a support that's in place to help them focus on their rehabilitation and be able to successfully go through that. So there are a range of education programs that are out there. The Canadian Armed Forces provides a significant amount of education as well. And so individuals who are still serving often get degrees, diplomas, and others from support that they're achieving there, as well as designations for things like project management or certifications or other things as well. There's a range of elements that can help support veterans gain additional education and employment. And there's also a very large push at the moment as well to make sure that education and skills received in the military can be easily transferred over to an academic system. And so there are equivalencies that if a military member has achieved this level or this status in the military, and they want to apply that to a degree program, that places including Nova Scotia colleges and universities will recognize that and say, you don't need to start in the first year of this degree program because you have enough credits based on your experience from the military. You get to start in the second year.
Emily Moburket.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. Mr. Harris, thank you for being here and the work that you do to support veterans. We see firsthand in our offices, veterans come in looking for support. I know from a personal level, as I've had family in the military over various aspects, and I think it's important to recognize that to your point, that the benefits can go beyond many facets of service when it comes to it. I've had my family members in Manitoba many years ago. They've gone through they were in the infantry. They did their part and went through the process of applying for benefits. So what I think what I'll ask, and I think for the people in the room is how does that begin? Like an explanation. So a veteran comes forward, or you interact with one of our veterans here in the province. How does that process kickstart for the person to eventually look at getting benefits?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for the question. I'll answer it in two streams, two examples. And so example one is a little bit like what I was giving a little bit earlier, where a military member is transitioning out of the Canadian Armed Forces. It's established, the time frame's clear. They're going to be leaving. They will meet with the Veterans Affairs representative for a transition interview to say, okay, you're leaving the military. What do you need? How are you doing? Are there things that you're concerned about? And they'll go through an evaluation of a number of steps to say, okay, from a medical point of view, are you doing okay? What's your outlook for your future from a finances point of view? Do you have a pension? Are you going to go work? Do you have a housing situation? Are you living on base? Do you need to move? Do you need anything else? They'll work through a full transition mock-up on that point. And it may be that there are resources and programs that need to be put in place for the veteran at that period in time. Or it may be that the veteran is fine. The transitioning member is fine. They don't need anything right now. They're going to move on. They feel as though they're well set up. That's one way that a veteran could come to us. The second way is, they've left. Maybe they're gone. They've already been gone 10 years. Maybe they didn't have a full transition interview when they left 15 years ago, but we do that now. But they have a need. they can call us, they can contact us in any way. They can go into an area office, they can call us, they can write us online, and come to us and say, hey, I have an illness or an injury. You know, my knee is really, really bad. And now that I think of it, it was because of my service. It was because I was, you know, I did jumps for 20 years. Or it's, you know, just something that's come to me where I wasn't dealing with some of the mental health challenges that I was facing at that time. And I needed to not say anything because I wanted to continue to serve. But now that I'm out, and it's been 8-10 years, and I'm having nightmares, and I need some help. And so somebody can come to us at any point in time at that stage, you know, and we have individuals who will come and approach us themselves. We'll have family members who encourage veterans. We'll have, you know, what we would call battle buddies, encourage somebody to come forward and say, you know, you're not doing very well. You should go and see those guys, and they can help you out. So there's a range of ways that people can come. There's no wrong door for somebody to come to us, and whether they want to walk into an office and just sort of say, I need some help, or whether they know and they've gone, you know, there's a lot of other people who might go to a Legion and talk to a Legion service officer, and they provide great service too, and say, here's the kind of services you can get from Veterans Affairs. So it could be immediate as part of a transition process, and it could be years later that somebody comes to us. And there's, as I said, there's no wrong door.
Emily Mombercat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate this discussion because I think we learn a lot from this. And the example that I use is someone that served in the military decades ago. They had no idea that they may qualify for any kind of benefits. And that's no fault of the department. It's just a case of, like, you're trying to reach so many people. And I think that that's important for all of us to talk about. And we see it as that you have active people and you talk about the transition out. But it's just a case of people don't realize that some of these services exist, and they've served for decades. They may have served decades or before. And I appreciate the work that you and your department has done, because a lot of those veterans actually didn't realize it, and they've had hearing problems, and they've received support. Their family members have received support that are maybe battling illness too as well. Walk me through a bit of there's supports for the veterans themselves, but there's also supports for the family. Can you provide the committee with examples that if somebody steps forward to one of us as MLAs or to yourselves or one of the Legions, what supports can family members potentially get as they support a veteran?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks again for the question. And as I said earlier, you know, there's a range of supports that are available for family members. And sometimes they don't know what they actually need to start with, and they just need to talk to somebody. I spoke earlier of the Veteran Family Program that's available through the Military Veteran Resource Centers and others, which is an area where people are already very comfortable. They've had that experience while people are serving, while their spouse is serving, where they may have used their resources already. It's an area of comfort for them. They can go and talk to individuals there and say, okay, like, what supports and things of that nature might be in place. We have an opportunity to help support veteran families in engaging them in the treatment of the veteran. And so a veteran who's going through, and, you know, the easiest example is something like a mental health issue. We can involve family members in their treatment. And so if they're going through a psychologist, a psychotherapist, any kind of mental health treatment that they want, the veteran family can come in and be part of that process. They can also have individual sessions themselves as it helps support them dealing with their veteran family member. So whether that's the, you know, children or the parents or a spouse, you know, there's an opportunity for them to be involved there. I noted the VAC Assistance Service, which is a 24/7 line that people can call if they're in a crisis or if they just have questions or if they need access to some support and sessions on their own. And so if they call and they say, you know, I'm having a really hard time dealing with my veteran spouse, she's dealing with PTSD, and I just don't know what to do about it. The line can help set them up with a counselor to be able to go through some of those things. I know it was mentioned earlier, the Family Wellbeing Fund that we have, where we have actually also set up a lot of Stronger Families, again, in a good Nova Scotia organization, Strongest Family, sorry, a good Nova Scotia organization that has been helped and funded by Veterans Affairs Canada to help deliver family-based programs for those who are supporting spouses in the military. And sometimes, of course, we have spouses that are military members themselves. And so we can continue to support them in a variety of ways. And so whether it's mental health needs, whether it's a caregiver recognition benefit to recognize the crucial role that a family member may play in supporting a veteran, there's lots of different ways that we can do that. Just have them contact us, our office. You can contact politically, you can contact the minister's office. But you can also just send people through our client contact center, and we'll do a bit of a triage with them to say what we can do to help.
Emily Momberket.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. As I said, we deal with veterans who have served currently and may be transitioning. But I always go back to a lot of the cases that we deal with in my office are veterans that have been out for a long period of time that are not aware completely of what they may be eligible for. And as we said, we've sent people your way. We've sent people to the federal level politically to determine, kind of what the right path is. People have been assessed, a lot of compassion, a lot of support. That's a testament to you and your folks. I'm just trying to figure out how, from our perspective, we can help you and help your people reach these veterans that we all have in our areas that aren't aware. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not saying that to be negative, because there's a lot of people that have stood proudly to defend our democracy. But it is what it is. People don't realize the exact extent. We dealt with 2 or 3 files in the office where people had no idea, and then they ended up with benefits, back benefits, support for hearings, support for other ailments that may have come through their time in duty. So my question, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Harris is, we all want to support our veterans, and we want to support you in your work. So in your opinion, what can we be doing from a local level to support the Legions or whoever else is on the ground to make sure that these veterans know what they're eligible for?
Mr. Harris.
Madam Chair. I guess what I'd ask of each of you and your colleagues in the Legislative Assembly is encourage them not to self-screen themselves out. Encourage them not to dismiss the fact that they might be eligible for something. Many times, and we talked about it a little bit earlier as part of a discussion of, who a veteran is. Many of our younger veterans, even our veterans into our 50s and 60s, don't see themselves as veterans either. They also have that vision of a veteran as a World War I, World War II veteran. Those, I served in the Canadian Forces. I'm not a veteran. Yes, you are. And your family members have an opportunity to be supported as well. And so many times what ends up happening is like, I don't want to bother with that. The second part I would just say, so please encourage them not to self-screen themselves out. Refer them to us, refer them to the Legion, whoever can help them. There are other organizations as well who will help encourage their work. The second part is, and this is one that's, something that we are responsible for and we were responsible for correcting. In many instances, people have had experiences with Veterans Affairs Canada. It wasn't a great experience. I spoke earlier of the delays or, the amount of paperwork that somebody might feel is required. It might feel overwhelming. We've made great strides in being faster, in being more efficient, in trying to require less in terms of people submitting stuff. And so if they had a bad negative experience the first time with us, and that was 5 and 10 years ago, have them come back. Have them come back and indicate, things continue to improve. Don't just get frustrated and say, well, I don't want to go through that again. There are good benefits for them to be able to have, and sometimes persistence or a second time makes a difference. And I would just encourage them not to be discouraged if they had a bad first experience. There's lots of ways for us to help fix and correct that.
Emily Momberket with 1:20.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you. And I'll say this to your point. So the last case we dealt with was someone who served active in the military. They fought the floods in Manitoba back in the 70s, right? And they were part of the, I don't want to say the infantry, I don't want to get it incorrect on the record. But the point is that they military served, they self-screened themselves out. They never realized, they said, well, I never fought in specific or served in specific areas, so I don't qualify. And to your point about being more efficient and all that stuff, I can say the assessment went very well. There was a lot of compassion brought forward by Veteran Affairs. They looked at every aspect of the individual. I'm just using one. There's multiple examples, but on the record and as part of the conversation, like that's a great point. Like for veterans, is that a lot of people do, I believe, self-screen themselves out. They don't realize that there are certain levels of service that they could qualify for, and they just don't know where to turn. So, for me, it's not more. This was more about a conversation to really kind of say thank you. We've always had great support from Veteran Affairs. In any facet of government, you're always trying to improve as the world evolves, right? And our world is going to continue to evolve, as we know, with what's taking place in a very unstable situation. And whatever we can do to support our active members. Oh, thank you.
The time for the Liberal questioning has ceased, so we will turn it back over to the PC caucus with 16 minutes, and I see fingers pointing to MLA Robichaud.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Harris. What specific gaps, if any, has Veteran Affairs identified in services for women veterans, and how are our programs evolving to address them?
Mr. Harris.
It's a great question. And, the Federal Committee on Veterans Affairs released a committee report not all that long ago indicating a lot of things that they saw from their experience in meeting with veterans, in hearing from women veterans, those kinds of issues. What we had, and I referenced a medical model earlier, was a very male medical model. Veterans Affairs was very male-dominated for a long period of time. All of our evidence was based on male experience and what have you. And so one of the big challenges that we've had is, how do we fix the way in which we look and assess individual veterans who may have had different experiences and may have different physiology? And so, when we've looked at, and I'll use the example of disability benefits, somebody who has a repetitive stress injury as a result of carrying a heavy rucksack on their back for years, how long does that take for that normally to develop from a male pathology point of view? Maybe it's 10 years. But maybe for women veterans, it's less. Maybe it's 7 years of that same level of repetitive stress that causes it. And we always had our experience based on male physiology and male models. And so that's one of the things that we need to do. We also need to look at things differently from the point of view of things that may impact women more directly. Fibromyalgia is something that certainly disproportionately affects women, not something that we saw very much in a Veterans Affairs point of view for a long period of time, but now that's something that we see more regularly as well. And so what we've done is we've undertaken large-scale consultations with women, veterans to learn their experiences and to see what that might be, and how do we help address the gaps that may exist in programs. We have things that are called EEGs, they're Entitlement Eligibility Guidelines, where we can provide additional context for decision-making to help support individuals. That's one of the things that we've tried to do to allow for different information to help support the needs of women veterans that might differ. I'll give you another sort of very antiquated type idea. We have the Veterans Independence Program that we talked about earlier about housekeeping, groundskeeping, things of that nature. Most often, since it was developed, the veteran was male, the spouse was female, and there was an expectation through that program that, the woman spouse at home was going to take care of a lot of the things that may be more assigned or affiliated with women's duties at home from, a model of 50 years ago. Those are all things that we need to change. And so we do gender-based analysis on all of our programs to see how differently impacted communities that we support. And, you've raised the issue of women. We would raise the issue of a variety of equity-seeking communities, Indigenous communities, and others to see exactly how our programs might need to evolve and adapt. But the quick answer is lots of large-scale consultation to address areas where we know we may have gaps. It was taking longer for women veterans to get decisions for some of the reasons of, it looked different than the other things. And so it took us more time. And we've done a lot of work to make sure that that's being addressed.
MLA Robichaud.
Thank you for that answer. It's great to hear about the progress and how things are evolving. You mentioned earlier the Help at Home program. So could you tell us about the different streams of the Help at Home or Veteran Independence programs?
Mr. Harris.
Veterans Independence Program, as I noted, has been around for a very long period of time. The most common elements of it are really housekeeping and groundskeeping, and so snow removal, grass cutting, things of that nature, and then help around the home to maintain its cleanliness, window washing, things of that. So the idea was to take away the heavy burdens that might exist on a veteran and their spouse to allow them to stay in their home much longer. There are whole other streams of what independence program could be. And as I said, it could be some level of home alterations to be able to help, if you think of bars and bathrooms and things of that nature as a very simple example. But it could also be meals provided at home for individuals who may be at risk for that. What we have noted and what has been noted through even things like the census is, veterans tend to actually live longer, but can also be alone longer. And so some of the things that we need to do to make sure that they're being supported are those kinds of things. And maybe that's, as I said, provision of meals and supports from a housekeeping, groundskeeping, maintenance point of view, and others. Health outcomes are much improved when people can stay home. That falls into the category of, caution and careful for stairs and everything else. But if, your snow is cleared and you're less likely to fall, if you're not doing heavy labor tasks on that, you can stay home. And the health outcomes for people who stay home are much, much higher than those who move to either an intermediate or a long-term care facility. And so it's been a wonderful program that's helped a great many veterans over the course of decades.
Emily Robichaud.
Thank you. And that answer might answer a bit of the next question, but just in case that there's more. How does Veteran Affairs support informal caregivers, particularly aging spouses or family members who may be experiencing burnout?
Mr. Harris.
And thanks. And it does carry on from that. And so, the housekeeping and groundskeeping from a physical point of view are something that helps support aging spouses as well. And then we also have, as I noted earlier, a caregiver recognition benefit that recognizes that there may be burnout. There's respite care that's available through some of those as well. And so when you talk about burnout, there is an opportunity in some instances for somebody to be able to come in and either monitor or maintain the health of a veteran for a temporary period of time to allow a spouse, a family member, others to be able to kind of have a bit of an opportunity to catch their breath. There's also lots of great organizations across the country that do that kind of work as well. Help support families by giving them opportunities to take breaks in addition to the supports that Veterans Affairs offers. But the caregiver recognition benefit allows for a little over $1,000 a month in tax-free benefit for folks. I think I had that earlier, but 360 recipients in Nova Scotia since 2018 of that particular benefit. And it does just recognize the fact that, as a result of their veteran partner or family member being injured or ill as a result of their service, they have to take on a little bit more. And we need to be able to help them to do that effectively as well and recognize, and while this isn't a full compensation, it is a recognition payment.
Emily Robichaud.
Thank you. And my last question, could you provide us with an update on how many Nova Scotia veterans are on Veteran Affairs case management, and vice versa, how many case managers operate per Nova Scotian veteran, and what's their caseload?
Mr. Harris.
I'm afraid I won't have all of that information. I did note, I think we're about 2,300 case managed veterans in Nova Scotia. It's about 2,000 in Halifax area and about 300 served out of Sydney area. And so I don't have the total number of case managers in Nova Scotia, but happy to get that. Generally speaking, our caseload is somewhere around 30 to 1. And that includes a variety of needs. And so you will have a few veterans amongst that 30 to 1 that might be, somebody you need to talk to every day or a couple times a week. And then you may have a couple of which, they're on track with their rehabilitation, they're doing well, You might only need to check in with them, once a month or whatever to see how they're doing. So each case manager has a range of veteran clients, some more intense, some less intense, based on what their needs are, to allow them to be able to deliver that service effectively.
MLA Stolflick.
Thank you. Question. A lot of times, or most times, when a veteran, when a military individual is, loss of life or severely injured, a lot of the mental health issues, a lot of times, are with the spouse at home. Have we ever talked about, or is there any discussion going forward on having some sort of mental health support for spouses?
Mr. Harris.
And so there are some elements of mental health support for spouses in those circumstances and situations where they can be supported if they lose their life in service to the country while serving. There are supports and things that are in place from the Canadian Armed Forces as well, and some supports that continue into to Veterans Affairs. I know there's a range of organizations, including organizations that help either with in-service death, post-service death, including suicide and things of that nature as well. And so, we look to help support the family as much as we can from a financial point of view and from a mental health need point of view. There are some challenges and some gaps in those areas for spouses and family members of military members who pass away. And we continue to work with our Canadian Forces colleagues and DND and with the provincial health system as well to make sure that those supports can be in place.
MLA Stolflick.
Thank you. And lastly, one quick question. Being in sales most of my career prior to this, I'm always ranking things and ranking products that I used to sell. And if you take all the support, disability, income replacement, health, mental health, long-term care, would you mind just ranking? I'm just curious what number 1 through 5 is. What are we?
Mr. Harris.
In terms of the greatest expenditure, it is our disability benefit program. So compensation and recognition for illness or injury that could be either in a pension form or in a lump sum form. That would be easily the most expensive, highest expenditure that we have. And then we've got a range of other supports, as you've noted, in terms of treatment benefits. Income support would be the second. So, our expenses or expenditures around disability benefits and pensions is 1A, I would tell you, is our income replacement support. It used to be just the disability pension was the highest expenditure. The income replacement support has become or is becoming sort of very close to the annual level of expenditure there. And then the other ranges of things, long-term care is further down the list. Treatment benefits, health care is certainly probably third in that list as well.
Thank you.
MLA Stolflick.
I'd like to pass on to one of my colleagues.
MLA Palmer with 3:30.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Harris. We could talk for hours, I'm sure. A topic I'm not sure if we hit on today, and that's the appeals process. Could you maybe just speak briefly to the appeals process and talk about maybe some of the reasons why the applications might be delayed, denied, sent back for additional information, and just one little follow-up on service officers in the Legions. And could you talk about, because we have some great ones in the Kingston and Berwick area, could you talk about their importance as that frontline person dealing with the veteran through Veterans Affairs programs?
Mr. Harris.
In 3 minutes, right? The service officers provide an important function and have for many, many years of assisting and helping veterans with applications for any range of Veterans Affairs programs. They're very knowledgeable. Veterans are often comfortable working in a Legion environment and comfortable having somebody else help them walk through the process. We can, at Veterans Affairs, help with that. we're less likely to have someone ask us. The Legion officers, because they are the heroes that they are in terms of great work and building relationships with individual veterans, have been great, not only in Nova Scotia, of course, but across the country in terms of helping support veterans on that front. So, and your other question was, pardon me. Oh, the appeals process. Yeah, sorry, the appeals process. So there's two different appeals processes in Veterans Affairs. So disability pensions, disability benefits goes through something called the Veterans Review and Appeal Board. And so if you get a negative decision, you will also get appeals rights. In those cases, there's a Bureau of Pension Advocates, lawyers, who we fund to help support a veteran with an appeals process. And they will look at the decision that you got from Veterans Affairs and help you collect information to present to the Veteran Review and Appeals Board. It's a very generous system of recognizing that if we decide ultimately that your initial application is denied, you get a second chance to be able to go and do this, funded with Canadian government support to help a veteran prepare for that. There are other appeals for other kinds of treatment benefit programs that don't have that same level of support, but veterans can appeal any negative decision that they receive from the department, and there's a number of appeals levels to help support them, and that can be a successful avenue for them getting a different outcome.
Emily Palmer.
Thank you, and I'll pass it on to my colleague, Emily Hilton, for some final comments.
Emily Hilton has 50 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing you said earlier, that your programs and the services that you provide are good. And as we close, just maybe elaborate on that a little bit. And is there anything we should be working on going into the future?
Mr. Harris.
Thanks for the question. I think that there's a good range of benefits and services that are in place for our veteran population. Whether they need financial support, education and training, health care, rehabilitation, long-term care, family support, there is a good range of programs in place. Are there things that we could do to refine that going forward? I'm sure. I think the link into the provincial healthcare system is really important for us to help work on going into the future.
Order.
I'll leave it there.
It's always difficult to cut off a witness when they're giving such valuable information, but I do want to thank you for appearing here before the committee and allowing the members to ask such important questions. It was a great update. I'm happy to hear some of this myself. I frantically wrote some notes, but I will welcome you to finish your thought and some closing remarks before we adjourn.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks to all the members of the committee. Thank you for the invitation. I think it's my third time here. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. You let me talk and don't cut me off, and that's not always the case. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to actually have a chance to explain a few things and share some information. Very grateful for the committee and the work. It is not common for a provincial legislature to have a Veterans Affairs Committee. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you about important veteran issues. I know how important veteran issues are for Nova Scotia. Such a big population, such an important population. And so I just want to thank everybody here for the opportunity to come and speak with you again. And would, as I said earlier, encourage any of you, if you have veteran constituents who come to you and are looking for some help, send them our way. We'd be more than happy to try and help them.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. The committee will take a brief, we do have a fair amount of committee business to go through, but we will take a brief 3-minute break so that Mr. Harris can collect his things. Order. I call the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs back to order. As I mentioned before the recess, we do have a fair amount of committee business to go through, so I'm going to start off with the bigger two pieces of business, which is related to our next set of meetings. So when inviting the witnesses for the topic, as you know, to the Desmond Fatality Inquiry final report and recommendations, various witness additions were made via some polls, and some were not yet decided on, and also the approved additions are the Associate Deputy Minister of the Office of Addictions and Mental Health through those polls, as well as the Deputy Minister for the Office of African Nova Scotian Affairs. The unapproved witness suggestion is the Vice President of Operations of the Northern Zone of Nova Scotia Health, and the original invited witnesses to this topic was the Department of Justice and Office of Military Relations. So if everybody can kind of refresh their memory on that, what my question and what we need to do for the committee is how we would like to proceed with the approved additions, and if there is a desire to remove a witness, it must be made. There must be a motion come from our committee. So I would like to include, and also if you would like to include the unapproved witness, which was Nova Scotia Health, through those various email correspondences. So I'm looking for committee's input and direction on how this very important topic should proceed. Sir, me. Emily Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify, so at the tail end there, you said the original invited witnesses are the Department of Justice and the Office of Military Relations. They're still a go. It's just the two that are unapproved that we need to discuss?
I believe that the Office of Military Relations, yes, they are the two. Department of Justice and Office of Military Relations are the two original witnesses.
But they're still on the...
They're on the list.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Emily Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, this is a very important topic to all Nova Scotians, and it definitely deserves a lot of respect, this topic, for sure. I think what we need to do is make sure we have the best witnesses, the witnesses that can provide the most relevant information, that can really speak to this topic. And Office of Military Relations has suggested that they would not be probably the office to do that. So I think in respect to the topic that Nova Scotians want our committee to make sure we focus on, we're going to be suggesting that military relations be removed. We've already added African Nova Scotian Affairs, and now some people from Nova Scotia Health, mental health addictions. I think we'll have a better representation of witnesses who can speak better, more plainly, and more effectively to this topic. So we, with recent changes and additions and scheduling issues that we've had, the current witness list will be adequate for the purpose of this committee without Office of Military Relations. So, therefore, Madam Chair, if I could, I would like to move to amend the witness list for the topic, the Desmond Fatality Inquiry Final Report and Recommendations, for the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs to remove the Office of Military Relations and include representatives from Nova Scotia Health.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Emily Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, because you're going to add Nova Scotia Health, but it's saying that they're not unapproved witnesses. So I just want some clarity. I think, the original invited witnesses were those two, the Department of Justice and Military Relations. And I mean, the Desmond Fatality Inquiry is essentially a military discussion, and the fact that, they will not be, or they're being requested to not be included, I think speaks volumes to why we need to have them there, so that they can, have this discussion when it comes to what we need to do to move forward. So just on the point of my colleague across the table there, I feel like there's a benefit to them being here to have that particular discussion when it comes to this particular topic.
Is there any more discussion on the motion? Seeing Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of the new motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
The motion is carried. On to the next topic, discussion that we have is, lost my spot here. When we were inviting the Royal Canadian Legion Nova Scotia Nunavut Command to discuss veteran survivors' pension benefits, they indicated that they are unable to present before the committee due to the lack of expertise on the actual subject matter. So my question to the committee is, how would we like to proceed with this conflict, as there is a request that the Legion remain as one of the witness for the topic. However, they have indicated a few times now that they're not in a position nor necessarily comfortable to speak to the topic at hand. So looking for input from the committee, MLA Stovlik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that I'd like to have a motion, but I'd like to put a little context prior to the motion, if I may. I understand that the contents of the letter sent by Mrs. Kim, which we all have, there was a request to appear for the topic of survivors.
Yeah, different. That's the MLA Stovlik. That's the MLA Hilton.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Madam Chair, and yeah, we'll make a motion that, or I'll make a motion that I move that the witness list for the topic of survivors' pension benefits for the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs be amended to remove the Royal Canadian Legion Nova Scotia Nunavut Command, and for the reason that they've said on multiple occasions that they don't feel comfortable or engaged in that part of the conversation. So,
is there any more to MLA Hanson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that would also still include the witness list that's on there as of right now, if we remove them, right? It would be the National Council of Veterans Association and the Armed Force Pensioners Association of Canada. They would still remain as, I just want clarity.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, MLA Hanson, that is, we're just removing the Nunavut Command. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the table? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. The motion is carried. So the next couple of little things are, we did receive over a period of time the letter dated back to September 23rd from the Canadian Institute for Military and Veteran Health Research. Sent that letter that we all have a copy of and request to appear before the committee. And the letter, like I said, the letter's been distributed. And is any comments on the letter that we received? Okay, seeing none. If we wanted to bring it up maybe at a later topic agenda setting, that would be a good idea. So the last piece of correspondence is a piece of correspondence that we did receive by email on December 1st. It was from a Miss Joanne Kent, who I believe you guys as well all have that letter. And she had sent a request to appear before the committee. That's the topic of the veteran survivor pension benefit. I'm just looking for any input and discussion on the correspondence that we received from Ms. Kim. MLA Stovlik.
Thank you. I'd like to move to amend the witness list for the topic of survivor pension benefits for the Standing Committee and remove the Royal Canadian Legion Nova Scotia Nunavut Command and include Joanne Kim.
Just one moment. Okay, there's a lot of committee correspondence here, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't mix up the two pieces of correspondence that were from a while ago. So are you making the motion, Emily Stovik? Yes. So motion on the table.
Yep.
Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of adding Ms. Joanne Kim as a witness to present at the Veteran Survivor Pension Benefits meeting when it's scheduled, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. With that, our clerk now has some direction from the committee, so he will do his best to have some witnesses appear. Our next meeting is going to be February 17th, 2026. Topic to be determined, and the witness list as well will be whichever the topic is. So the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.